Hey everyone, my name is Paul Joseph Russell, but you can just call me Joe. I've embarked on a journey to write my first novel, in fact, a trilogy of novels called Rivendoah. I live with my husband Richard on 6 acres of land nestled in the wilds of Virginia, and every Monday I post a video sharing the progress of my writing as well as projects on our little stretch of land. In this week's video, I'll be taking you out to the clearing to make a morning breakfast of hotcakes on the fire as I talk about the plotting of Rivendoah. So, I hope you'll join me on my adventures in living as a writer and an artist. Hey everybody, Joe here. Welcome back to my author's channel here on YouTube. It's a little bit rainy today and it's a little bit misty and a little bit chilly, but that's not going to stop me from coming down here to the clearing and making some pancakes and brewing up some coffee to drink. In addition, today I want to talk a little bit about the plotting and structure I'm using for the making of my trilogy of novels, Rivendoah. So why don't you go ahead and join me. I'm going to go ahead and get started here, get a fire going, and make some coffee, and then I'll get back with you. Well, in addition to making pancakes on the fire pit, if I can ever get this fire going, again, the wood is very damp and it's having a hard time getting started, but I see the first trickles of flame. It's just going to take a little time for everything to dry out. So while I'm waiting, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what the main writing topic is today, which is writing plot and having structure to your fiction. The fire is definitely struggling, as you can see, but I think I'm finally starting to get something going here. I'm really excited because today I'm going to be making something I haven't made before, which is blueberry pancakes in my iron skillet out here at the clearing. So I'm looking forward to that. I can hear my stomach grumbling because I am hungry this morning, and I hope you'll stick with me while I go ahead and get some coals going in this fire, get some water on the boil for some hot coffee, and then we'll talk a little bit about plot and the structure that I'm using for my novel Rivendoah. All right, we're finally getting a real flame here. I'm gonna go ahead and put on some more wood. These are some of the pieces I had from the chopping up the wood the other day. And, chopping up that pine tree, it's got that great resin in it, pine resin that I think will burn really well. In fact, it looks like it's already taken off. Yeah, we're good. Okay, well, now that the fire is finally getting started, as you can see, it's struggling still, but it's getting there. I was hoping to get some coffee on, water on a boil, get some coffee going, and then talk about some of the ideas I have about plot in my novel Rivendoah. I think I'll go ahead and start now. I wanted to begin by sharing several quotes that I found about plot and structure in writing. The first one is by Stephen King, and the second one is by John Irving, and they are sort of on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of their feelings about plot in writing. I'm just going to go ahead and read them, and then I can tell you a little bit about how I feel about that. Okay, here's the first one. I distrust plot for two reasons. First, because our lives are largely plotless, even when you add in all of our reasonable precautions and careful planning. Second, because I believe plotting and the spontaneity of real creation aren't compatible. Stephen King. All right, here's the second one. Know the story, as much of the story as you can possibly know, if not the whole story, before you commit yourself to the first paragraph. If you don't know the story before you begin the story, what kind of storyteller are you? John Irving. Well, you can sort of see that these guys are great friends in real life, and they may have different ideas about writing, but they really are fast friends and have made bonded over the years. But I tend to fall into the Stephen King camp. I like to let things kind of roll out as I write and develop the plot as I go. Then kind of come back in my revisions and restructure it to fit the final direction of the story. Unfortunately, John Irving has a sort of a different idea in that you should really prepare before you write even your first sentence or paragraph. You should know what your story is and how it ends. In fact, I think he's famous for saying that he writes the last sentence of the story first before he begins. I would just find that hard to do. That's not my style, but other writers find that to be very helpful. So that's one approach. And then I'm going to finish up here these quotes with a quote that I kind of really like by J.R. Moehringer. I think Moehringer is the pronunciation of his name. I just thought this was an appropriate quote from my perspective. Okay, here we go. I hate when people ask what a book is about. People who read for plot, people who suck out the story like the cream filling in an Oreo, should stick to comic strips and soap operas. Every book worth a damn is about emotions and love and death and pain. I agree with that 100%. Whether you know your story before you start or whether you discover your story while you're writing, it's never really about the plot. It's about the human emotions, your character's emotions, which are really, to be honest, your emotions coming through those characters. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get back to this fire. It's looking a little bit better now, but it needs some more wood. And then I'll go ahead and start pulling my stuff out and showing you what I have in store in my skillet today. Okay, while I'm waiting for the fire to get to a place where I can put on my two sticks and then my grills on top of that so I can prep for the boiling the water for my coffee, I wanted to start by talking about the 5 primary tools that are used in plotting story for a novel or really for any fiction. I'm just going to run down the list really quick. Number 1, exposition. Number 2, building action. Number 3, climax, the climax of the story. Number 4, falling action. And number 5, resolution. Now, you know, where these fall into the story, I would tend, in terms of how I've written Rivendoah, you know, I sort of have the exposition in the beginning, but it sort of is filtered throughout at different areas. I also am trying to build suspense all through the novel, really building suspense within each scene and, of course, each chapter. The climax for me actually comes towards the end. So, and I would think it would in most stories. So the climax, you know, there's a lot of number 2, which is building action and prepping the story for that climax. Then there's falling resolution falling action, and then the final resolution. Now, since mine is the first in a series of 3 novels, Rivendoah, The Wings of Shadow being the first novel, that falling action and resolution are only sort of partial in nature, and the full resolution will not come till the end of the 3rd novel, of course. Maybe a 4th, maybe a 5th, maybe it'll be 6 novels, you never know, but I'm really planning on 3. The story in my head, as far as I can see it at this point, is just 3. What happens then, of course, is open to, you know, potential speculation, but at this point, I just am just focused on getting the first novel done, and then the remaining 2. So since we're sitting here and the fire's still going, I'm going to talk about the first one, which is exposition. Now, I'm just going to read from some things I found online, and, you know, talk a little bit about how I feel about it. Okay, exposition, of course, is, you know, telling the nature of the story. What is the story about? Where is it taking place? Who are the characters? And, you know, without giving anything away, sort of set the stage for the story. And I'm just going to read this. Exposition is the beginning of the story, prepares the way for upcoming events to unfold. It is in this part of the plot where major characters are introduced, the setting is established, and major conflicts of the story are revealed. This is also the part where the character's backstory is presented for viewers to gain insight into the reasons why the main characters think and behave in a certain way. Of course, for me, I like to have a certain amount of exposition in the beginning, but I like to sprinkle it out a little bit here, a little bit there, so the reader sort of discovers what's really happening over the course of the story. And that's just my particular approach, at least how I'm trying to do it. You know, if I have editors review my work and say, you got to approach this a different way, I will consider that. Anyway, let me go ahead and I'm going to tamp the fire down. I got some good coals going, get my Hellfire grills on. I'm going to need to put on both of them today. There's 2 in this package, which I did when I did the Bacon, Eggs, and Evil video. Get them both on there, get my water going, and get some coffee on, and then I'll come back and talk about building action and suspense, which is the second in the of the 5 primary tools in building plot. All right, I got this thing going. So put some wet wood on there, so it's that's going to take a little bit of time to heat up and get going here. But I think I'm ready for putting my 2 pieces of wood down, so I can get my grill on. Okay, you guys ready for number 2? Building action and suspense. This is one of the primary things you have to do in any good story. It is at this point where the main problem or conflict is revealed. During this point of rising action, the protagonist will struggle to face the conflict or conflicts, which could either be internal, protagonist versus self, or external, protagonist versus antagonist, protagonist versus nature, society, etc., and chronicles how the main characters deal with the curveball that comes their way. Now, building or rising action, I feel like sort of happens, throughout the entire novel. Every scene has to have some element of tension or building suspense. And it can be a minor thing, a thing between two characters, or it can be the main rising or building action and suspense that is the focal point and drives the story forward. But some element of tension or suspense really needs to occur throughout, really the entire novel. At least that's how I feel about it and what I'm trying to do in my approach. I'm not sure I'm always successful, but that's my goal, is to try and approach it from that standpoint in Rivendoah. All right, that fire in the grill looks very hot, so I want to get my water on and get it boiling. All right, let's see here. We need to get our water on the boil. This is my cooking pot. Got my fresh well water. A little residue of tea from the last outing here in the clearing. I'm gonna go ahead and fill that up. And get that on the fire. That will be boiling in no time. All right, now we're going to talk about number 3, which is the climax of the story. Now, I'm just going to read this. The climax is the turning point in the story, often centered around the protagonist's most difficult challenge or their bleakest moment. The climax is the most exciting part of the story and initiates a turning point in the characters' lives. The climax is where the protagonist receives new information, accepts the information, realizes it, and may or may not necessarily agree with it, and then acts on that information. So, the climax, for me, I've already worked it out in my head. In fact, for me, the climax is the favorite part of the story. In fact, I think I thought of it before I'm getting smoke over here again. Hold on just a second. Okay, that's a little bit better. Still getting a little bit of smoke there. But as I said, the climax is my favorite point. In fact, the climax came to me as one of the first things, and in many ways, I've sort of written my characters and the story around getting to that moment. It's still not 100% formulated because I have sort of reserve that for the final thing to write, because I want to, I've got it sort of plotted out in terms of its action and the events that all come together, but I haven't actually written it yet, and I'm going to wait until I've gotten all the other pieces done leading up to it, because I want to make sure that I incorporate any new information that might be revealed at that point, or the characters' reactions based on what I've written up to that point. So The next item, the next number 4 of 5 is of course falling action, and I'll just go ahead and read that one. It is the point that occurs immediately after the climax and reveals the details of the consequences, good or bad, that the main character must deal with after the turning point of events. It sets the stage for resolution. So, and of course, then we have resolution. Resolution is the part, and this is the last thing, where the outcome of the events and the fate of the protagonist and antagonist, the evil character, are revealed. This part is where the protagonist resolves the conflicts and the loose ends of the story are tied up, unless of course the story continues, which is sort of what I'm doing. My climax, my resolution will include, in addition to determining, what happened in the climax and resolving that as far as I can, I'm also going to set the stage for book 2. And I'm actually going to do that in the epilogue of the story. But I won't give that away. I don't want to, that's going to be kind of a surprise. And I'm very excited about writing that part of it too. The last chapter or paragraphs are very important to where the story proceeds from there. And so I don't want to give any of that away. But so I think I'm probably ready for my pancakes. The fire has died down to coals. I have very little open flame coming up through the grill. And I have to be really careful. I want to warm up the skillet, but not, make sure I don't burn the pancakes, because I'll be honest with you, I'm starving, and I'm really looking forward to I'm going to make one pancake with blueberries, and it's going to have maple syrup and slathered in butter. So why don't you stick around and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I won't burn it. All right, I would say that is ready. You can hear it boiling and putting out steam. All right, we got that hot water. It is ready, and I'm going to get it in my coffee maker here. Of course, this is a coffee press. I'm sure you all have seen one, and you've seen it in my videos before. Got my coffee here. Here we go. That is hot. Ooh, yeah. Nice and hot. Got my fire gloves on. There we go. I'll let that brew for a few minutes. Then I'll press it down. Okay guys, you ready for the press? I think it's been in there long enough. I go ahead and press this down, and you press this until you hear the click. See if you can hear it. That's it. All right, for the blueberry pancakes, which are right in here, I'm gonna need to add a little bit of water. You can see the nice big old blueberries in there. I also have this wonderful maple syrup, and Have some butter for the pan. Let's go ahead and get that. I'm going to save this for the top. Let's go ahead and put this in there. Cut it into two. And that'll give me the oil I need in my pan. I'm going to have to be very careful not to burn these, but I think this is going to be good. Okay, now it's time to pour that coffee. I am going to get my gloves out because the last time I did this, it was very, very hot. So I should be able to just pour it right here. You guys can watch, see how it comes out. Looks fairly dark. You know, I like it a little bit darker, but I think this will do. Yeah, that's fine. I'm liking that. All right, let's go ahead and test this out. This will go good with my hot pancakes, my hot cake. I'm saying pancakes, but I'm just gonna make one, so it'll be pancake. All right. You guys ready? Here we go. In stirring up the wood a little bit to get these two new pieces of wood here to hold the grill in place, I did stir it up a little bit, so I got a lot more flame. So I'm just gonna kind of hold it over there. I think I got enough butter in there. Whew. I don't want it to get overdone. You know, I just realized I forgot to bring a spatula. So I'm gonna have to kind of just flip it and then maybe you eat it right out of the pan, I'm not sure. It's gonna be a little bit messy in there. I might pour off a little bit of that. Woo. Okay, I think that's gonna be good. Okay, now, you guys ready? Here we go. Look at those blueberries in there. Looks good, huh? Let's see what happens. I'm just gonna put all of it in here. Just fill the I don't know if you're an expert at making pancakes, but one of the things that I've always seen with making pancakes, it's, you know, when you get those little dots in there and the air bubbles come up, that's when you know it's starting to get ready. I'm going to turn this a little bit so it gets done on that side. Well, I may have screwed myself here on not having a spatula. I don't know if I'm going to be able to turn this or not. It's actually looking just about ready. I was hoping I could just flip it, but it's just hanging on there. I don't know. I'm going to try and flip it and see what happens. Whew. This is going to be a mess. I got a feeling. All right, I think I made a bit of a mess here, but I'm going to try and flip it. I got half of it flipped. Went ahead and cut it in half. Let's see if we can flip this side. Hey, not bad. Not bad. All right, let's get it on there. I think I'll give this side a little bit more. Certainly isn't pretty, but I think it's going to be very tasty. Okay, so after talking about the 5 uses or ways in which you can develop plot, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how I approach it. or at least for the novel Rivendoah. For the most part, I'm what is called a pantser, and when it comes to writing, and a pantser is someone who writes from the seat of their pants. So, like Stephen King, I guess, in the examples of the quotes I gave earlier, he likes to sit down and just start writing. Maybe he has a couple scenes in mind, one scene, maybe a sentence, paragraph, but he just starts writing and building, and that's where the excitement comes in for him. And I sort of feel the same way. You know, writing is a funny thing. It's like I avoid it, but when I'm actually sitting down and doing it, I get very excited because as I write, things come to me, new connections between characters and ideas for plot and visual things that I hadn't thought of before actually come through the writing itself. So that's the way I like to write. You may be different. You might be more like John Irving, who likes to have the whole story in his mind before he starts to write, or you may be somewhere in between. I think I'm a little bit more in between because I do like a little outlining as I go to kind of begin to structure the story. But for the most part, you know, I'm a Stephen King guy. I like to sit down and just let the story unfold and discover it as I write it. So what became Rivendoah for me was inspired by two sort of disparate things that ended up kind of melding together to form the story. The first was an illustration I did, actually a digital illustration where I combined a bunch of different elements together and created this sort of warm and inviting magical tree, a hollow tree with a door and a light that was streaming out of it, that was sort of in a darkened place. I did that a long time ago, not a long time ago, but before I even began any writing at all. The second thing that occurred was I thought about writing. I wanted to write about, figure out a way to write about some of the experiences that I've had that were very traumatic for me. So I started out by writing a paragraph or two about a man who was broken and how the brokenness was actually sort of a virtue rather than a destructive element in his life. It can be destructive. Being broken is destructive. The act of being broken is destructive. But the rebuilding, the mending, the becoming whole again is sort of what interested me about this man who was broken. And taking some of the experiences that I have seen, felt myself, I kind of pulled all those things together, and I also combined it with the tree. The element of the tree became the light, the healing element that came through the brokenness. Because when you are broken and you have been broken, when you have suffered trauma, you sort of go one of two ways. You can either become destroyed by it, or you can mend yourself through your experiences and find the positive or the light on the other side. Sometimes it's a whole long process to get there, but this story is about that. All the characters really are broken in some way because of the events that occur to them during the story or occurred before the story, and it's sort of the events, the evil that happens in the story is their journey to redemption and to peace. So anyway, in terms of plot and structure, you know, I started by sort of weaving scenes together. There was a quote, I cannot think of the writer's name, I heard it on NPR, and she said writing for her was like weaving together a necklace of pearls, little pearls that, you know, each little pearl was a scene or a piece of story, and you sort of weave them together a little bit at a time until you have hopefully a beautiful necklace at the end. And I like that idea. I sort of like, piecing together these little things that I have in my mind, feelings, places, locations, story bits, images that come to mind, and sort of weaving all that together to form this story called Rivendoah. Okay, well, this is sort of my final thought on plot. Plot for me, and I think for all storytelling, is an essential ingredient in writing good fiction. But if you focus too much on plot and structure, you may end up losing your story, because ultimately the plot and the structure of the story is really only a vehicle for what was said in that third quote that I gave, which is to allow people to express their emotions about trauma and death and pain and sorrow and love and all the ingredients of life. And depending on what your story is about, you can explore all those things. And plot is really simply the container to hold them. Like for instance, the story, the feelings is the coffee, and the plot is the structure of this cup that holds it all together and makes it so you can drink it. Otherwise, I would be dripping wet right now if I didn't have this cup. I'd have coffee all over me, and it wouldn't make any sense. So I think readers need to have the structure of a plot in order to get the things that you're trying to say. So it's sort of like, you got to do that in order to get to the good stuff, which is really for me talking about the feelings that I have as a human being and the thing and wanting to share those things in a way that people find both entertaining and informative about maybe their own lives. Okay, in next week's video, I'll be taking you guys along on a road trip. We're going to get out of the clearing for a while and get out on the road. And for a hint, I'm going to leave you with a quote. Halloween is kind of coming up, and it's that time of year. So I'm going to leave you a quote from Shirley Jackson's famously haunting book. All right, here we go. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone. Ooh, that still gives me chills. In both the reading of that book and also the black and white film from the late 1960s. It's not nearly as hot as it was, so I don't think this butter is going to melt now. But I am still going to put a little bit of it on here. If I can find it. Hold on. I'm actually going to use this as my plate. So I'm just going to slice a little bit of butter. Probably way too much. Not the healthiest thing, but I have it here, so I'm going to use it. Then I'm going to go ahead and pour the maple syrup. Ooh, yeah, that looks good. All right, I'm going to dish it out. I'm going to put it on this, and I'm going to eat it with my hands. All right, here it is. Got it here on a piece of pine that's fresh. It's clean. Won't have to do any dishes. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a bite. That is good. Look at all that butter. Doesn't that look delicious? I want it to slide off of there. Oh man, this is, I think, one of the best things I've made out here at the fire. Oh, it's sweet. Those blueberries are juicy. And there's something about making it you know, kind of roughing it here over the fire. I just love it. In my plot for my story for Rivendoah, there is going to be a scene where in book 2 they're traveling, and there's going to be a lot of time spent outdoors making fires in the woods. That is just too good. After my coffee, boy, I could eat this all day. Okay, look at that big piece of butter right there. Tell me that's not, oh! I almost missed it. I think this wood gives it a little bit of a flavor of pine too, which is not a bad thing. I'm gonna eat all of this. Fortunately, you gotta watch. You know, if you guys really hate seeing me eat on camera, please still give me a thumbs up and like the video and subscribe, but just tell me, no more eating on camera. You know, I kind of like it. I have a feeling, you know, when I make something out here and I'm eating it and enjoying it, I kind of feel like you're along here with me. You can almost taste it. That is so good. The fresh blueberries that I dropped in there at the last second, I wasn't sure I was going to do it. That really makes it. It's crunchy, soft and fluffy on the inside. Absolutely delicious. And I have more. Member of the Clean Plate Club. Did your parents ever say that to you? All right. Well, I guess I have said all I need to say today. I think I wrapped up the video already, but I'm going to say it again, wrap it up one more time, and tell you all that I will see you guys next week. And remember, it's going to be a road trip. So we're going to jump in the car, we're going to head down the road, and we're going to go to a place that I think will be just perfect for All Hallows Eve, you know, the month of October. I actually have something really special planned for Halloween, but I'm not going to tell you about that right yet. I'll tell you about that at the end of the next video. So until then, I'll see you. Oh yeah. Big old blueberry. Loving it.